Hey guys, this is Houston, coming from the Contemplation Blog 101. I just recently started the blog, so what I'm going to do is, if you guys have been reading my blogs beforehand, I'm just going to start out with the oldest blogs, and then just come up to the very newest one that I've written, alright? So, let's get started. My first blog is actually about redesigning the government and economy. I know, it's kind of a big subject, but it kind of goes like this, alright? So you know that the economy and government right now are kind of you're right? They're kind of crappy. We're pretty much, firing and shooting on each other every day for the sake of crap, pretty much, right? Right. Well, it seems like me, if we had to redesign the economy and government, I would focus on one of the biggest aspects ever, religion. Right now, religion is causing probably the most issues whatsoever. People are fighting, they are dividing their economics and everything else on the basis of religion, and it's kind of stupid. It's kind of like the scenario with the popular kids at high school, right? It's a fad. Well, think of it like this. Think of the whole hipster fad right now. Hipsters wear thick frame glasses, and they think they're too cool for everything else, right? Yeah, it's the same thing kind of with different countries, Christians too cool for Muslims and vice versa, yada yada yada. And it's kind of nice, I guess, to have a little rivalry, but don't you think we're going a bit too extreme? I mean, would you really want to shoot your other neighbor just for the sake of, holding your beliefs, withstanding them, yada yada yada? Yeah, I don't think so. So, with my redesign, I would say that religion would become many times less of an integral part of our system. It would be more of, I guess, something separate. Kind of like in the United States where there's a separation between church and state, only it would be a lot more integral, if that makes sense, right? And if we continue this separation, there's so many more things that can come out in a positive side, right? I mean, if you don't have as many religious conflicts and stuff like that, then you won't be staying in the same kind of rate of progression, right? Your progression will probably double or triple because you won't have to be worried about getting shot at every single day or something similar, right? You can start focusing on how to better yourself and better your humanity and everything else, right? Plus, if we don't have as many religious conflicts and stuff to begin with, then we also will have countries that begin to work together and presumably begin to mesh together in some few centuries, right? I mean, if you want, it's kind of like how we kind of evolved, I guess you could say, as a civilization. We came from small groups to tribes to smaller cities to a bit larger cities, and now we're in countries, right? So it seems pretty logical to upgrade from countries to more of a single world order. I'm not saying like Illuminati or any crap like that. I'm just saying that we just evolve to an even more intricate form of civilization that's even larger and more powerful than ever before. I mean, think of the stuff as ambitious and large as the International Space Station. Do you honestly think a country, even as rich as the United States, for example, can pay for something as huge as the International Space Station? Probably not. You need the collaboration and resources of multiple countries to go to projects of that scope and larger, presumably, right? So it makes sense that we need to have collaboration. And the only reason why we would need collaboration is to better ourselves to begin with, right? And if we don't have religious conflicts, then collaboration will ensue, right? Greater collaboration, less conflicts, vice versa, yada yada. Yeah. Presumably, if we become a one world government, it won't be like one world government, Heil Hitler, one little mesh of a government that controls and dictates everything about our life, right? It'd function a lot more like a federal government, kind of like in the United States, where you have one large government that controls some supreme laws, that control and inhabit every single person that lives in the world, right? But then you have state governments, kind of, I guess you could say state in that sense, because the states themselves could pertain to more regionalized, localized governments in the former locations of countries that used to exist, right? It's not like the countries like disappeared off the map and their customs and everything else are still there. It's just that there's more of a enhanced collaboration between all of them, right? In addition to what I would call a federal government, a one world federal government, I would also say that the whole idea of trade as we know it wouldn't really exist. I mean, you know how people are, like all the greatest businessmen right now are pretty much outsourcing to China and stuff like that. Yeah, it's good in the short term for profit, but it's not really sustainable because you're also improving the economy of China too. And once the economy improves, then the cost of maintaining them increases, and then you have a second United States labor, right? I mean, you don't want to go there because it's more expensive and it's not really outsourcing anymore, right? So with the one world government design, that will pretty much go out the window too. Trade itself, it would exist, but it'd be more like a capitalism, kind of like in the United States, where everything is free in terms of trade and everything. Well, unless it's like really dangerous or something, you know. And it would be closely regulated as well, just in case it's unsafe or unsustainable or something like that, right? Something with a lot of pollution, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think capitalism and the freedom of trade would still exist, but the trade itself wouldn't have a discrepancy in deflation and inflation as you do with countries between, say, China and the United States. There wouldn't be any sort of economic backlash from the deflation or inflation, right? Currency itself would be kind of uniform, hopefully, maybe. And idealistically, we could also say that currency itself could not exist as we know it with the one world government and a more advanced society. But yeah. Like I said before, I think all customs and stuff will be preserved as they need to. It's more, the government itself would be more of a collaboration kind of thing. And the whole formation of such a government redesign to prevent all these issues from occurring, it wouldn't be something very, very imperialistic that takes over every single custom. It'd be something more on the lines of the United Nations, where it's an institution for unplanned collaboration, and over time our customs become globalized and there's no real definitive nation collapse and nation rise, if that makes sense. It's more of nations learning together to work together, because after all, you don't put a frog into boiling water, right? You let the water slowly start to boil to kill the frog and eat it, right? Sherlock Holmes. So yeah, I would also like to say with the economy and government that we would probably be more, I don't know how you describe it, our way of economics will be many times more sustainable as well. We wouldn't just keep our traditional free trade, quality, and all that kind of stuff as they are now. We'd also evolve to be more ecologically friendly and other stuff, and I think behaviors that are more sufficient, like renting objects and trading them, and not necessarily a true ownership sense, would allow us to, you know, reduce our resource consumption and everything else, so that we can keep a pretty good thing going, right? I mean, trade would still exist, currency would still exist, but it wouldn't be as huge as it is today. Some actions that we would do in our one world government would not be constrained to costs. Like, let's say that we want to explore space or something. Cost for something as significant as that really wouldn't matter, because there's really no trade-off point, right? It's just kind of there. It's kind of there. I mean, there's resources required to make the stuff, but it's not as, there's no trade-off coming back at you, right? If that makes sense. It's that kind of stuff. Hopefully with this government redesign, we could be kind of like the people from Star Trek. Yeah, I know I'm a complete Star Trek geek, whatever. Who cares? Laugh at me all you want, alright? But I would say that idealistically, maybe a couple centuries after we've developed this sort of system, we've become a pretty stable, you know, one world government. Our currency itself could go out the window, and perhaps we could be judged purely on our contributions to society. Have we left some sort of legacy for the next generation and so forth? I mean, after all, that's the reason why we pretty much exist, bluntly, right? I mean, what do you really leave behind if you buy up a bunch of stocks? You have a bunch of electronic currency that gets taken off, right? Once you die and all your assets kind of go off into the deep end. So I think you'd be more judged as to what you've done. Have you figured out a vaccine for malaria? Have you done something like this or that? You get the point, right? Yeah. And hopefully we would be able to understand that our prime motive for existing will be to figure out why we exist, what is our purpose, and all the basic questions that we've asked since the very beginning of time, right? Hopefully we go back to that rather than, I want to be the richest son of a bitch in the world. I'm sorry for the French, but that's kind of the way we build society now. It's very materialistic, and it's kind of going the wrong way, especially since people don't really think about what happens after death. And after all, you're more likely to be dead than alive if you think about it. I mean, people die before they live. Your life is only maybe 80 years idealistically. Ideally. Why do we keep saying idealistic? I just made up a word, and I hope you like it. But after 80 years, none of that stuff that we set up to be very valuable in our society matters, right? So we have to go back to the old terms. So I think that's what we should build our society upon as well, and how we should reward our people. Have those people really contributed to society? Now, I'm not saying like we should make some sort of rudimentary grading system or something like that. I mean, that would just be ridiculous. But I just mean eventually we could make that into a kind of philosophy, kind of like how you teach a person not to steal. It's not something that they're necessarily rewarded on for not doing so, or doing so, depending on your perspective. But it's something that is frowned upon, and it can kind of push you away from not doing materialistic legacy, if that makes sense. So, in a nutshell, I think that's how we'd have to redesign the government and economy. We'd have to make it one world, and many times less dependent on materialism and other constraints, such as invented religion. So, in a nutshell, our inventions are governing our government and economy. And the new government and economy should focus on the way we control it rather than how our inventions and systems control it. I mean, if you look at the economic, like let's say you look at Wall Street right now. People freak out because the graph is going down. They treat it like some sort of deity or something, right? I mean, oh no, the graph is going down. We're all going to die. Well, guess what? We humans are the ones that invented the money system to begin with. So why would it suddenly develop its own conscience and somehow ruin our lives? They even made fun of this in South Park once. They kind of made credit cards look like they were a god of their own. It's the same principle, and it's kind of sad. So I guess to close off, to redesign our government, we need to stop relying on our own inventions as far as governing our system, and think about ourselves, what we do, what's important to us, and stuff like that. Okay? Alright, see you guys later. I'm gonna be doing a couple other vlogs later, alright? Oh, be sure to check out my blog and stuff. Be sure to check out my written blog in case I kind of ramble, because I'm gonna do that. Who cares? So just check out the written blog, subscribe, do whatever you do on YouTube, whether it's Nyan Cat videos or whatever. Alright, see you guys later.